Kimi Kelley, who has been at Otero College for 12 years. Before that, she taught middle school and high school in Rocky Ford. Previous to that, she taught various sub-jobs on the Western Slope and was also an EMT. Not only that, she has also worked for home health care. She is a jack of all trades and a wonderful professor. And I'm saying that, she didn't put that in there. I put that in there because I was in her class. So, I'm gonna get back to my spot now. As for her personal life, Kimi lives on a small farm with her husband, 2 dogs, a cat, and chickens. She enjoys spending time with her kids and grandkids, as well as lots of fishing, camping, and hiking. Everyone, please help me welcome Kimi Kelley.
Thank you. So, I'm so nervous about this. I'm shaking, I'm not kidding. So, Dr. Nolan said, I think he said something I thought, well, the subject matter. So, the subject matter of today's is, it's going to be difficult for me to share some of it, but the reason that I wanted to talk about this was because of some of the things that have happened on our campus. And I have some experience, some life experiences that my hope is that maybe something will help someone. And so I have a little disclaimer. Some of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about suicide. My own thoughts of it and others who are close to me. And some of it's going to be graphic, but there's a purpose in that. So I'm letting you know that there could be triggers for people, and those are, I'm just letting you know that there could be some possible things that are emotionally, potentially triggers. And I'm repeating myself. I know some of the professor talks are about your education, what you do in life and all that. I'll give a brief glimpse of that, but that's not what the focus of my talk is today. So I showed this slide at the beginning of class of my semesters. And I tell my students a lot of this story, not all. But I do tell my students that, it's never too late to make a new beginning. So this is just a saying that I like, and I start the semester with my students. I'm from Paonia. Paonia's in the bottom of the valley. That's Mount Lambert. It's pretty similar to what it looks like right now. Lots of snow over there. Pretty place. It is beautiful over there. So my educational background, just super briefly, I share this with my students too. My bachelor's is from Colorado Mesa University, where I majored in Lit, English, and education. And from Regis, my master's is in creative writing. And I tell my students this too, that I graduated my undergraduate with magna cum laude and my master's with summa cum laude. And I say that because where I came from to where I am now, I think is part of the story that is encouraging to others. Because I'm a high school dropout. We'll get to that. Some of the things that I've done, and this is part of the overcoming difficulties or obstacles. I love to climb mountains. And so that's me on Mount Albert and on Mount Lambert. I did those alone. And I found that I shouldn't do so many things alone, that I had to prove to myself something, and getting over those things and climbing mountains was one of those ways. So at home, that's Millie and Buck, the dogs. Kurt and I on our motorcycles on our way to Sturgis. That was 2 years ago. And then just recently, poor picture, but I took my grandkids and daughter to Potted Potter in Denver, a play that was super fun. So, my story. By the time I was 6, my father had lost a couple of jobs already. And my mom and dad had 4 kids. So there were 4 of us within 5 years. By the time I was 11, my father had lost several jobs. And I had seen him go through periods of darkness that I did not understand, and I also saw him have these illusions of grandeur. I didn't know that's what they were called at the time, but he would say things like, we're going to move to California, we're going to have this great big house on the beach. And as a child, I thought, that sounds really awesome, and I had this hope. But I also knew that my father couldn't keep a job. And I did not know that my father was bipolar and schizophrenic. It took me a lot of years to learn that. I remember three distinct times in my life, and I did write about this in my graduate studies. My mom would sit us down on the couch. And the first time was when she announced that my father had lost another job. And he had a mental breakdown at work, and he was taken by ambulance to the state hospital. As a kid, I didn't get it, but I knew it was bad. And they were talking about it at school. So I had this stigma all of my life also about my father's mental illness, and it was a struggle. And the second time was when my mother announced to us that they were getting a divorce. And that was devastating, but I could even understand that because I saw them fight. But I now know too that my father's level of mental illness was so bad that there's no way my mom could have lived with that and raised us kids. He was truly mentally ill. And then the third time was when she announced to us that my father had committed suicide. And all of those losses were difficult for me. I mean, the divorce on top of one thing. So I started going to counseling when I was young. And then by the time I was 14, my 54-year-old aunt died of breast and bone cancer. She fought cancer, but it came back. And within that same year, my cousin died in a climbing fall in the Flatirons up near Boulder. And on my 14th birthday, my grandfather, died of a brain aneurysm. To die on my birthday was something that I remember still on my birthdays. That it's just one of those memories. He didn't mean to, but it happened, and so it was a memory. Those losses made my life difficult. And to throw it in there, to add to the mix, I had a teacher in 5th grade tell me that I was too stupid to learn math. So, school was not good for me. I couldn't even escape there. Home was not good for me. And so I learned at a young age that life was difficult. And a little bit older, I started handling the things in life in some bad ways. So I used drugs and alcohol. Why wouldn't you? If you feel bad, that's the kind of thing that you do. And when you're a teenager, you do anyway. But they made me feel different. And different was better than feeling bad. And I think we all know that. We know that it's an escape. It's self-medication, it's whatever you want to call it. To feel different is better than feeling depressed and hopeless. Problems are still there, but it's unfortunately a way a lot of people deal with it. So my first thought and attempt at suicide was when I was 16. I swallowed a half bottle of pills, and it was unsuccessful naturally, but I do believe that was a cry for help. I needed somebody to listen to me, and it was a cry for help. And I did go to therapy, but I don't know, it wasn't so effective. And I continued to have to struggle with depression for many years, and I was diagnosed with clinical depression. And off and on, I continued to use those rather unfortunate ways of coping because, whatever numbs the pain were ways that I chose. I worked through a lot of that. But one night, I had a side job in addition to whatever job I was working at the time, but I worked at a newspaper in Peonia. And beside the newspaper was a bar, which was super convenient. We worked late nights and I was there anyway. So I had a friend, Mark. And Mark I had known for many, many years. years. And Mark had been having some struggles in life. But one night, I heard this ruckus out on the street, and I went out, and Mark was shouting in a drunken state, and I said, come on, let's go talk. And we talked for a long time, and he told me he was considering suicide. He was strongly considering suicide. He had a plan. If someone has a plan, we always need to take it seriously. It's not just a thought. Thoughts of suicide are common. Almost everyone has thoughts of suicide when life is really hard. Something bad happened, we have this thought, oh, it'd be better if I just weren't here. Those are situational thoughts. They're not, can happen to anyone. But to have a plan is we need to take seriously, and he did. And so I talked him out of it that night. And I took him home and checked on him the next day, and a few days later his sister called me and said he committed suicide. I had guilt with that. I had guilt with my father's. Why wasn't I a good enough daughter? Why weren't we good enough for my father to... I gotta call myself out. I did not want to cry today. The survivor's guilt that people have after suicide is very real, and it can lead to its own kind of depression. And so I had that with Mark. It was worse with Mark than with anybody else, because I felt pretty good about getting him through that night, but then he went ahead and committed suicide. But that's not on me. I tried to do something. And it took me a lot of research and study over the years to know that you can do whatever you can. You can have all the resources possible, and some people will go ahead and commit suicide. They just will. So we should do whatever we can. We should do an intervention. We should gather that person up. We should take them to the hospital. We should do anything. We should do anything, but if it doesn't work, then we can't hang on to that guilt. It just is something that happens, and it's unfortunate, but some people commit suicide. There are gazillions of studies out there, of course. I could cite quite a few of them. But, so, it is known that there are genetic predispositions to suicide. And so I have to live with that too. Because my father committed suicide, I had a greater likelihood, and I knew that from a young age. And I had to be aware of that and work through that. Some suicides are done just impetuously. They might think about it, people might think about it, and then they seem okay, they've gone to treatment, they're taking medication, they're seeking therapy, and just all of a sudden in one moment, then it happens. So there are so many scenarios for suicide. Being aware of them, I think, of course, is going to help immensely. But sometimes, some of the surprises that we have are the ones that are the most difficult. It doesn't look like there are signs, but you might look at a picture later on and see that there's something in their eyes or an expression on their face. The signs are there, but they might not be recognizable. And that's something else that we survivors have to live with, is that we always think we should recognize the signs, but sometimes they're so subtle. Not everyone is vocal about how they feel about their life or ending their life. We just don't hear it. So we do the best that we can do. So there were lots of other things I was intending to say, I think, but so I've heard this different times in life, that the only way to go through something is to go through it. And so I've got lots of people in my life right now. I've got a stepsister who is just she's in that deep, dark place, and I don't know if she will ever get out of it. And she keeps choosing the same way, the chaos, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. She just won't go through it. And going through it, drugs and alcohol can be ways that people think to go through it, but they're not. They're not answers. And if we can intervene in some way with people, that's a good thing if we can, but really the only way to go through it is to feel it and deeply. It's painful, it hurts, but it's really the only way that I've found to really truly experience, to get through it and to become whole again. Right now, my family, my daughter is going through a life crisis that's pretty enormous. And my mom and aunt are going through a life crisis that is unimaginably horrible right now. But they're going to get through it, and I'm going to get through it. And now, you know, I survived all those times that I survived. And I learned tools along the way. So I fortunately had people who did believe in me and who gave me the support. If we can give that support, we all know here, preaching to the choir here, we all know how to give support. That's what we do here. But there are some people out there who might not know how to reach out for support. And for those are the ones that we have to keep a lookout for. The legacy of suicide has levels that are unimaginable to me. And my father committed suicide. This is the graphic part of my talk. So, and we could definitely have trigger warnings. But I think what he didn't think about, and I think what a lot of other people don't think about, is there was a pool of blood left on my grandmother's carpet. And there was gray matter and blood scattered throughout the house. Those are the things that a few months later, a lot of people don't think about. That legacy, to find something like that several months later, it just brings it all back, and it keeps the pain going. And I really don't think that so many people who commit suicide intend that. And I don't know, but if they knew that that would be, most people who commit suicide do not want to hurt other people. They're ending their own suffering. And I think if my father would have thought about that, he couldn't have. He was too sick to do that. But I think possibly he could have. But that legacy is another legacy that we don't. I never would have wanted my children to see that or anything like that. To promote their, to, you know, add to their suffering that they might have. But my family who's going through the crisis, I'm going to choose better ways, and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to go through it with them, offer my support. So this is me. I'm not offering advice, or, you know, I would not tell anyone else to do, but this is my story and how I got through it, and just to offer support. But we all know that. So go through it. And then my final, one of my favorite movies is Castaway with Tom Hanks. And some of my favorite words are, I know what I have to do. I have to keep breathing. I have to keep breathing because the sun will rise. And who knows where the tide could bring